It was one of those Friday evenings when the rain just wouldn't stop. The kind of rain that makes you want to stay indoors with a hot cup of coffee and forget about the world outside. I was sitting in my favorite corner of the downtown cafe, the one near the big window where I could watch people rushing by with their umbrellas. My laptop was open in front of me, but honestly, I wasn't getting much work done. I was just enjoying the warmth of the place and the sound of rain tapping against the glass. The cafe was pretty crowded that evening. People were escaping the rain, shaking off their wet coats and ordering hot drinks. There was a comfortable buzz of conversation all around me. I took another sip of my coffee and tried to focus on the screen in front of me. That's when everything changed. I heard footsteps approaching quickly, and before I could look up, someone was standing right next to my table, a young woman maybe in her mid-20s with wet hair and panic in her eyes. She was breathing fast like she'd been running or was really scared about something. Our eyes met for just a second, and I could see she was desperate. "Please," she said in a low, urgent voice that only I could hear. "Please pretend to kiss me. He's watching." I blinked, completely caught off guard. This wasn't exactly something that happens to you every day. For a split second, my brain tried to process what was happening. Was this some kind of prank, a dare? But then I looked at her face again. Really looked at it. The fear in her eyes was real. This wasn't a game. My eyes quickly scanned the cafe, and that's when I spotted him. A tall guy near the entrance, standing almost motionless, staring directly at our table. There was something intense about the way he was looking at us. Something that made my stomach tighten. He wasn't just casually glancing over. He was focused like a hawk watching its prey. I didn't have time to think about it too much. Something in my gut told me this woman needed help and she needed it right now. So I did what felt right in that moment. I smiled at her. The kind of smile you'd give someone you care about, and said in a voice loud enough for anyone nearby to hear, "Everything okay, my love?" The relief that flashed across her face was immediate. She quickly sat down in the chair across from me, and I reached across the table to take her hand. It was cold and trembling slightly. I leaned forward, creating the impression of intimacy, like we were a couple having a quiet moment together. From the corner of my eye, I kept watching the man at the entrance. He stood there for what felt like forever, but was probably just a couple of minutes. His jaw was tight, his hands clenched at his sides. I could feel the tension radiating from him even from across the room. I kept my body language relaxed, protective, like I was her boyfriend and had every right to be sitting there with her. I even laughed softly at nothing in particular, trying to make the scene look as natural and convincing as possible. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the man turned and walked out of the cafe. I watched through the window as he stood outside for a moment, looking back one more time before disappearing into the rain. Only then did I feel the woman's hand relax in mine. "Is he gone?" she whispered, not daring to look toward the door. "Yeah," I said quietly. "He's gone." She let out a long breath, and I could see her whole body sag with relief. But then something else happened. Her eyes filled with tears, and she covered her face with her free hand. She wasn't crying loudly or anything like that. It was quiet, almost like she was trying to hold it all in but couldn't anymore. My heart broke a little seeing her like that. "Hey," I said gently, handing her a napkin from the dispenser on the table. "You're safe now. It's okay." She took the napkin and wiped her eyes, looking embarrassed. "I'm so sorry," she said, her voice shaky. "I'm so sorry for putting you in that situation. You must think I'm crazy." "I don't think you're crazy at all," I replied honestly. "I think you're scared and you needed help." "There's nothing crazy about that." She looked at me then, really looked at me like she was trying to figure out if I meant it. I gave her a small, reassuring smile. "Do you want to talk about it?" I asked. "Or would you rather I just make sure you get to your car safely?" She hesitated for a moment, glancing toward the window where the rain was still coming down hard. "Could we just sit here for a few minutes?" she asked. "I just need to make sure he's really gone." "Of course," I said, closing my laptop to show her she had my full attention. "Take all the time you need." We sat there in silence for a bit. I ordered her a hot tea without asking, figuring she could use something warm. When the waitress brought it over, she wrapped both hands around the cup like she was trying to absorb all its heat. Slowly, the color started coming back to her face. "Thank you," she finally said, looking up at me. "I mean it. Thank you for not asking questions and just helping me. Most people would have thought I was weird or ignored me completely." I shook my head. My sister went through something similar a few years ago. Someone who wouldn't leave her alone. I know what that fear looks like. I couldn't just ignore it. Her eyes widened slightly. Your sister? Is she okay now? She is, I said. It took time and some help from the police, but she's okay now. She's actually one of the strongest people I know. That seemed to give her some comfort. She took a sip of her tea and then, slowly, she started to tell me her story. Not all of it, not yet, but enough for me to understand what was happening. The man at the door was her ex-boyfriend. They'd broken up a few months ago, but he wouldn't accept it. He kept showing up wherever she went. The gym, the grocery store, her favorite coffee shop. Always watching, always there. I've tried everything, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I've told him to leave me alone. I've blocked his number. I even filed a report with the police, but they said they can't really do anything unless he threatens me directly or tries to hurt me, and he's smart enough not to do that. He just watches. The frustration and helplessness in her voice made me angry. Not at her, but at the situation, at a system that made someone wait until they were actually hurt before they could get real help, at a person who thought they had the right to make someone else live in fear. That's not okay, I said firmly. None of that is okay. You shouldn't have to live like this. I know, she said, and a single tear rolled down her cheek. But I don't know what else to do. I've tried everything I can think of. We talked for almost an hour after that. She told me more about him, about how their relationship had been fine at first but then slowly became something else, something controlling. How he wanted to know where she was all the time, who she was with, what she was doing. How breaking up with him had been one of the hardest things she'd ever done. And now she was paying the price for it. I listened to every word. And with each thing she told me, I became more determined to help somehow. When it was time for her to leave, I walked her to her car. The rain had slowed to a drizzle, but I kept an eye on every shadow, every person walking by. I made sure she got in safely, locked her doors, and started the engine. Before she drove away, she rolled down her window. I don't even know your name, she said with a small, sad smile. I told her, and she told me hers. We exchanged phone numbers, and I made her promise to text me when she got home safely. And if you ever need help again, I said, if he shows up and you're scared, you call me anytime, I mean it. She nodded, her eyes grateful. I will, thank you again. You have no idea what you did for me tonight. As I watched her drive away, I stood there in the rain for a moment thinking about that encounter, about how a simple act of kindness, of just trusting someone when they asked for help, had maybe made a real difference. I didn't know then that this was just the beginning, that this chance meeting would lead to something neither of us expected. But standing there in that parking lot, watching her taillights disappear into the night, I felt something shift, like the universe had just connected two people who needed to meet. The weekend passed slowly, and I couldn't stop thinking about what had happened at the cafe. I kept checking my phone, making sure she'd texted me like she promised. She had, that first night, just a simple message saying she got home safe and thanking me again. But I wondered if she was really okay or just saying what she thought she should say. Monday morning came and I tried to focus on work, but my mind kept drifting back to her story. The way her hands had trembled when she first sat down at my table. The fear in her voice when she talked about her ex showing up everywhere. I'd seen that kind of fear before with my sister, and it never got easier to witness. My phone buzzed around lunchtime. It was a text from her, and my heart jumped a little when I saw her name on the screen. I hate to bother you, but he's here again. At my gym. I'm in the parking lot and I'm scared to go to my car. I know this is a lot to ask, but is there any way you could help? I didn't even hesitate. I grabbed my keys and told my manager I had a family emergency. The gym wasn't far from my office, maybe 15 minutes if I hit the lights right. I made it in 12. When I pulled into the parking lot, I saw her standing near the entrance, pretending to be on her phone. She looked relieved when she saw me get out of my car. I walked over to her casually, like we'd planned to meet there all along. Hey, I said, loud enough for anyone nearby to hear, and then I gave her a quick hug. Sorry I'm late. Traffic was crazy. She played along perfectly. It's okay, she said, her voice much steadier than I expected. I just finished my workout. Out of the corner of my eye, I spotted him. He was leaning against a car about 3 rows away, wearing sunglasses even though it was overcast, pretending not to watch us. But I could feel his attention like a weight pressing down on the situation. Is that him? I asked quietly, still smiling like we were just having a normal conversation. Yes, she whispered back. He joined this gym last week. I've been a member here for 2 years. That made my blood boil, but I kept my expression neutral. Okay, I said. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to walk to your car together and I'm going to kiss you goodbye like we've done this 100 times before. And we're going to make it very clear that you're not alone. Can you do that? She nodded, and I could see the gratitude mixed with uncertainty in her eyes. We walked slowly to her car, my arm around her shoulders in a protective way. I kept talking the whole time, telling her about a fake movie we should see this weekend, asking if she wanted Thai food or Italian for dinner tonight, making it all sound so natural and real that anyone listening would believe we'd been together for months. When we reached her car, I did exactly what I said I would. I made sure she was safely inside, told her to text me when she got home, and played the part of the concerned boyfriend perfectly. He was still watching from his car, his jaw tight, hands gripping his steering wheel. But he didn't approach. He didn't say anything. He just watched us, and I made sure he saw every moment of it. After she drove away, I got back in my car but waited in the parking lot for a few extra minutes, making it clear I wasn't going anywhere fast. Eventually, he started his engine and left too, heading in a different direction than she had gone. Only then did I breathe a sigh of relief. That evening, she called me instead of texting. "I'm sorry," she said right away. "I'm so sorry for dragging you into this mess. You barely know me and I keep asking you for help." "Stop apologizing," I said gently. "You're in a difficult situation, and you needed help. There's no shame in that. But it's not your problem to solve," she insisted. "I should be able to handle this myself." "Maybe," I said. "But why should you have to handle it alone? Look, I have an idea and you can say no if you want. But what if we made this more official?" "What do you mean?" I took a breath, thinking through what I was about to suggest. "What if we pretended to be in a relationship, like really committed to the act? We could stage some dates, make sure we're seen together in public, post a few pictures on social media if you're comfortable with that. Make it so convincing that he has no choice but to believe you've moved on. Sometimes guys like him only back off when they think someone else has claimed what they considered theirs." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. "That's a lot to ask of someone," she finally said. "You didn't ask," I pointed out. "I'm offering. And honestly, I have my reasons. When my sister was going through her situation, she felt so alone. Nobody wanted to get involved because it was complicated and uncomfortable. I watched her struggle with that isolation, and it almost broke her. If I can prevent someone else from feeling that way, then I want to do it." "But what about your life?" she asked. "What about your actual girlfriend or whoever you're dating?" I laughed softly. "I'm single. Work keeps me pretty busy, and I haven't really made dating a priority lately. So my schedule is pretty open for fake boyfriend duties." She laughed too, and it was the first time I'd heard her laugh. It was a nice sound, genuine and warm despite everything she was going through. "This is absolutely crazy," she said. "Maybe," I agreed. "But crazy situations sometimes call for crazy solutions. What do you say?" Another pause and then, "Okay, let's do it. But I want to set some ground rules and I want to be clear about boundaries." "Absolutely," I said. "How about we meet for coffee tomorrow? A real one this time, where we can actually talk and plan this out properly." "That sounds good," she agreed. "And hey, thank you again. I know I keep saying it, but I mean it every time." "I know you do," I said. "Get some rest. I'll see you tomorrow." After we hung up, I sat on my couch thinking about what I'd just agreed to. Was this smart? Probably not. Was it the right thing to do? I believed it was. Sometimes you meet people at exactly the moment when you can help them, and ignoring that felt wrong. The next day we met at a different cafe, one across town where her ex wouldn't think to look for her. We spent 2 hours there talking about everything. She told me more about their relationship, how it had started so well, but gradually became something that felt like a cage, how he'd isolated her from friends, made her feel guilty for having her own interests, and how leaving him had been both liberating and terrifying. I shared more about my sister's experience too, how she'd eventually gotten free but how long the healing process had been. We talked about boundaries for our arrangement, what we were comfortable with, what we weren't, how we'd communicate if either of us felt uncomfortable at any point. 3 weeks had passed since we started our arrangement, and honestly, it was working better than either of us had expected. We'd gone on 5 fake dates so far, each one carefully planned to look natural and spontaneous. Coffee shops, a walk in the park, dinner at a nice restaurant downtown, and even a trip to the bookstore where we both actually enjoyed browsing through the shelves together. The thing is, somewhere along the way, something started to change. I'm not exactly sure when it happened, but the lines between pretending and reality started getting blurry. Like that time at the bookstore when she got excited about finding an old mystery novel she'd been searching for. The way her whole face lit up with genuine joy made my heart do this weird little flip. I found myself buying the book for her without thinking twice about it, and the hug she gave me felt different somehow. Less like acting and more like something real. Her ex had definitely noticed our relationship. We'd see him occasionally, always at a distance, always watching, but he was keeping his distance now, which was the whole point of this arrangement. Still, we documented everything. Every time he showed up, every location, every date and time. We were building a case just in case things escalated, and she needed more evidence for the police. One Saturday afternoon, we decided to visit the local art gallery. It was having a special exhibition on contemporary photography, and she'd mentioned wanting to see it. I picked her up from her apartment, and for the first time, the drive there felt completely comfortable. We weren't rehearsing what to say or planning how to act. We just talked about normal things like work, the weather, and a funny video she'd seen online. The gallery was quiet that day, with only a handful of other visitors wandering through the spacious rooms. We moved slowly from one photograph to the next, sometimes commenting on what we saw, sometimes just standing in silence and taking it all in. There was this one photograph of an old couple sitting on a park bench, holding hands, both of them looking off into the distance. Something about it felt peaceful and sad at the same time. "That's what I want someday," she said softly, standing next to me as we both stared at the image. Not the getting old part, I mean. Well, that too, I guess. But that kind of comfortable companionship, where you don't have to perform or pretend or be anything other than yourself. Yeah, I agreed, understanding exactly what she meant. Someone who just fits into your life naturally. She turned to look at me then, and there was something in her expression I couldn't quite read. "This has been really nice," she said. "These past few weeks, I mean. I know it's all pretend, but it's been the most relaxed I've felt in months, maybe even longer than that." "It doesn't have to be all pretend," I said, the words coming out before I could really think them through. "I mean, we're actually friends now, right? That part's real." She smiled, a genuine smile that reached her eyes. "Yeah, we are. You know, when this all started, I never thought I'd actually enjoy spending time with my fake boyfriend. I thought it would feel awkward or forced. But it doesn't. You're easy to be around. You're easy to be around too," I said. And I meant it completely. We continued through the gallery, and at some point, without either of us really planning it, we started holding hands. Not for show, not because anyone was watching, but just because it felt natural. Her hand fit perfectly in mine, and I found myself not wanting to let go. After the gallery, we grabbed lunch at this little Italian place she loved. We sat by the window, sharing a pizza and laughing about the terrible abstract art we'd seen in one corner of the exhibition. The conversation flowed easily, jumping from topic to topic without any awkward pauses. We discovered we both loved hiking but hadn't been in months. We both preferred staying in and watching movies to going to loud parties. We both had a weird obsession with true crime documentaries. "Okay, but here's the real question," she said, her eyes sparkling with amusement. "Pineapple on pizza. Yes or no?" I pretended to think about it seriously. "I'm going to say something controversial here. I think pineapple on pizza is perfectly fine. Not my first choice, but I don't understand why people get so angry about it." She laughed, the kind of laugh that made other people in the restaurant turn and smile because it was so infectious. Finally, someone reasonable. My ex used to get actually upset if I even suggested ordering it. Like genuinely angry about fruit on pizza. I should have known then that we weren't compatible. The mention of her ex made the mood shift slightly. She noticed it too and quickly tried to move past it, but I could see the shadow that crossed her face. "Has he been around lately?" I asked gently. She shook her head. "Not as much. I think he's actually starting to believe we're together. Either that, or he's just getting tired of the game. I don't know which, but I'm grateful either way. I've been able to breathe a little easier. That's good, I said. That's really good. But even when he's completely gone, you can still call me. I mean, if you want to. We don't have to stop hanging out just because the arrangement ends. She looked down at her plate, pushing a piece of crust around with her fork. I've been thinking about that actually. About what happens when this is over. About whether we go back to being strangers or if there's something else here worth exploring. My heart started beating faster. And what conclusion did you reach? I don't know yet, she admitted, looking back up at me. Part of me thinks it's too soon. I just got out of something really unhealthy, and I don't want to jump into something new before I've had time to heal properly. But another part of me thinks that what we have is different. It started differently. It feels different, and maybe the timing doesn't matter as much as the person. I nodded, understanding the conflict she was feeling. There's no rush, I said. Whatever you need, whatever pace works for you, that's completely okay. I'm not going anywhere. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Thank you for being patient with me, for understanding that this is complicated. Life is complicated, I said with a small smile. If it were easy, it would be boring. As we left the restaurant, she linked her arm through mine and we walked down the street like that, just enjoying the warm afternoon. We passed by shops and cafes, watching other people go about their day. It felt peaceful in a way that I hadn't experienced in a long time, like everything was exactly where it needed to be in that moment. We ended up at the park, finding a bench under a large oak tree. We sat there talking for hours about everything and nothing. She told me about her dreams of traveling to Japan someday, about how she'd been learning the language through an app, but wasn't sure if she'd ever be good enough to actually use it. I told her about my dream of starting my own company eventually. Something small and meaningful rather than just climbing the corporate ladder forever. You should do it, she said encouragingly. Life's too short to not chase the things that matter to you. Is that what you're doing? I asked, chasing what matters. She thought about it for a moment. I'm trying to. For a long time, I let someone else dictate what should matter to me, what I should wear, where I should go, who I should spend time with. Breaking free from that has been hard, but it's also shown me that I get to choose now. I get to decide what my life looks like. And that's both terrifying and incredibly freeing. You're a lot stronger than you give yourself credit for, I told her. Walking away from that situation, rebuilding your life, dealing with everything that came after. That takes real courage. She leaned her head on my shoulder and we sat like that in comfortable silence, watching the sun start to sink lower in the sky. I could smell her shampoo, something floral and light, and I found myself wanting to remember every detail of this moment. The warmth of her beside me, the gentle breeze rustling the leaves above us, the feeling that somehow, despite all the chaos that had brought us together, we'd found something unexpected and valuable. Can I ask you something? She said after a while, her voice soft. Anything. Why did you help me that first night? Really? I know you mentioned your sister, but there had to be more to it than that. You didn't know me. I could have been lying or setting you up for something. I thought about her question carefully, wanting to give her an honest answer. I think we all have moments in life where we can either step up or step back, where we can either get involved or pretend we didn't see what was happening. And I've learned that the times I regret most are the times I stepped back. When my sister was going through her situation, there were people who knew but didn't help, who didn't want to get involved because it was messy and complicated. I saw how much that hurt her, how alone she felt. So when you came to my table that night with fear in your eyes, I knew I couldn't be one of those people who looked away. Even if it was risky or uncomfortable, I had to help. 4 weeks had gone by since we started this whole pretend relationship thing, and I had to admit something to myself that I'd been trying to ignore. I wasn't pretending anymore, at least not on my side. Every time my phone buzzed and her name appeared on the screen, my day got a little brighter. Every time we met for one of our staged dates, I found myself looking forward to it more than I should. And every time I made her laugh, I felt this warmth in my chest that had nothing to do with acting. The problem was, I had no idea if she felt the same way. Sure, we got along great. Sure, we held hands sometimes even when no one was watching. But she'd just gotten out of a really bad situation. And the last thing I wanted to do was pressure her or make her feel uncomfortable. So I kept my feelings to myself and tried to just be what she needed me to be, which was a friend and a shield against her ex. Speaking of him, he'd been quieter lately. We'd only spotted him twice in the past 2 weeks, both times from a distance. It seemed like our plan was actually working. But then Tuesday afternoon happened, and everything changed. I was at work sitting through a particularly boring meeting about quarterly reports when my phone started vibrating in my pocket. Once, twice, 3 times in rapid succession. I knew something was wrong. She never called me during work hours unless it was important. I excused myself from the meeting, ignoring the annoyed look from my manager, and stepped into the hallway to call her back. "Hey, what's going on?" I asked as soon as she picked up. Her voice was shaky, barely holding it together. "He's here. At the park. I came here to read during my lunch break and he just showed up. He's not leaving and he's getting closer. I'm scared." "Where exactly in the park are you?" I asked, already heading toward the elevator. "The south entrance near the fountain." "There are other people around, but he's just standing there staring at me. I don't know what to do." "Stay where the people are," I said firmly, pushing the elevator button repeatedly like that would make it come faster. "Don't go anywhere isolated." "I'm coming right now. I'll be there in 10 minutes. "I'm sorry," she said, and I could hear tears in her voice. "I'm so sorry for always calling you like this." "Stop apologizing and stay safe," I said. "I'm already in my car." I made it to the park in 8 minutes, probably breaking a few traffic laws along the way. My heart was pounding as I jogged from the parking lot to the south entrance. When I spotted her sitting on a bench near the fountain, clutching her book like it was a lifeline, relief flooded through me. But that relief immediately turned to anger when I saw him standing about 20 feet away, just watching her with this intense look on his face. I walked straight up to her, not even acknowledging him at first. "Hey," I said loudly enough for him to hear, leaning down to kiss her forehead. "Sorry I'm late. Ready to grab lunch?" She stood up immediately, gratitude and relief written all over her face. "Yeah, let's go." But as we started to walk away, he moved. He stepped directly into our path, blocking our way. Up close, I could see he was bigger than I'd thought, probably had a good 3 inches and 30 pounds on me. His jaw was clenched, his hands balled into fists at his sides. "We need to talk," he said to her, completely ignoring my presence. "No, we don't," she said, her voice stronger than I expected. "We have nothing to talk about. Please move." "I just want 5 minutes," he insisted, his voice getting louder. People around us were starting to notice, starting to stare. "5 minutes to explain. You owe me that much." "She doesn't owe you anything," I said, keeping my voice calm but firm. I positioned myself slightly in front of her, creating a physical barrier between them. "She's asked you to leave her alone. Multiple times. You need to respect that and move." He finally looked at me then, really looked at me, and I could see the anger burning in his eyes. "This is between me and her. You need to stay out of it." "I'm not going anywhere," I said, holding my ground even though my heart was racing. "And if you don't step aside right now, I'm calling the police." "For what?" He shot back. "Standing in a public park? I have every right to be here." "For harassment," I replied, pulling out my phone. "We've documented every time you've shown up where she is. Every location, every date, every time. We have witnesses. We have evidence. And right now you're creating a scene in front of dozens of people who can testify that you blocked our path and refused to leave when asked." Something in his expression shifted. Maybe it was the mention of documentation and witnesses, or maybe he finally realized that people around us were watching, some even holding up their phones. The public scene he was creating wasn't working in his favor. "This isn't over," he said, his voice low and threatening. "Yes, it is," she said from behind me, her voice clear and strong. "It's been over for months. I don't want to be with you. I don't want to talk to you. I don't want you in my life at all. And if you contact me again, if you follow me again, I will get a restraining order. I will press charges. I will do whatever I have to do. Leave me alone." I had never been more proud of someone in my life. Despite being scared, despite this man having intimidated her for months, she stood up to him. She found her voice and used it. He stood there for another moment, his face red with anger, but then someone in the crowd called out, "Hey, buddy." She said, "Leave her alone. Maybe you should listen." Others murmured in agreement. He was outnumbered not just by us, but by basic human decency. Finally, he stepped aside, but not before giving me one last threatening look. "You have no idea what you're getting into," he muttered. "I know exactly what I'm getting into," I replied. "I'm helping someone who needs help. That's all that matters." We walked away quickly, her hand gripping mine tightly. We didn't stop until we were in my car with the doors locked. Only then did she break down, sobbing so hard her whole body shook. I held her, letting her cry it out, whispering that she was safe and that everything was going to be okay. When she finally calmed down enough to speak, she said, "I can't keep doing this. I can't keep living in fear every time I leave my house. I can't keep dragging you into dangerous situations. This has to end." "You're right," I agreed. "It does have to end. Tomorrow we're going to the police station and we're filing for a restraining order. We have enough documentation now. We have today's incident with witnesses. They can't ignore this anymore." She nodded, wiping her eyes with the tissues I grabbed from my glove compartment. "And after that? What happens to us?" The question hung in the air between us. This was the moment I'd been both dreading and hoping for, the moment where we had to talk about what was real and what was pretend. "I think," I said carefully, "we need to have an honest conversation about that, but not today. Today you've been through enough. Let's get you home, make sure you're safe, and we can talk about everything else later." She looked at me with those eyes that had first caught my attention in the cafe all those weeks ago. But now they held something different, something warmer. "Can you stay with me tonight?" she asked. "Not for anything weird, I just don't want to be alone. My best friend is out of town and I really don't want to be by myself right now." "Of course," I said without hesitation. "I'll stay as long as you need me to." That evening, we ordered pizza and sat on her couch watching comedy shows, trying to lighten the mood after such a heavy day. She fell asleep around 10, her head resting on my shoulder, and I carefully covered her with a blanket and let her rest. I stayed awake for a while, thinking about everything that had happened, about how a chance encounter had led to this moment. The next morning, we went to the police station together. We presented all our documentation, every photo, every date and timestamp, every witness statement we'd collected. The officer who took our report was actually helpful this time, taking it seriously instead of brushing it off. With the public confrontation from yesterday and all our evidence, they approved a temporary restraining order on the spot, with a court date set for 2 weeks later to make it permanent. Walking out of that police station, I could see the weight lifting off her shoulders. She wasn't completely free yet, but she had legal protection now. She had proof that the system was finally listening to her. "Thank you," she said as we sat in my car in the parking lot, "for everything. For that first night in the cafe, for every fake date, for yesterday, for today. You saved me in more ways than you probably realize." "You saved yourself," I corrected her gently. "I just stood next to you while you did it." She smiled, but then her expression turned serious. "We need to have that conversation now, don't we? About what happens next." My stomach tightened. "Yeah, I guess we do. Can we go somewhere?" she asked. "Somewhere quiet where we can really talk?" I knew exactly where to take her. I drove us to this spot I discovered a few months back, a small clearing at the edge of town where you could see the whole city spread out below. It wasn't anything fancy, just a dirt pull-off on a hillside, but the view was incredible, especially in the afternoon light. We sat on the hood of my car, both of us quiet for a few minutes, just looking at the city below and gathering our thoughts. "So," she finally said, breaking the silence, "this is weird, right?" I laughed despite the nervous energy in my chest. "Yeah, this is definitely weird. Not many relationships start with a fake relationship first. Is that what this is?" she asked, turning to look at me. "A relationship?" And there it was, the question that had been hovering between us for weeks. I took a deep breath, deciding that after everything we'd been through, honesty was the only way forward. "I don't know what this is," I admitted. "But I know what I want it to be. And I also know that I need to tell you the truth before we can move forward or figure anything out." "Okay," she said softly, her eyes searching my face. "I'm listening." "I haven't been pretending," I said, the words tumbling out now that I'd started. "Maybe for the first week or so, yeah, it was just acting. But somewhere along the way, it became real for me. The way I look at you, the way I feel when you text me, the way my day gets better just knowing I'm going to see you, none of that is fake anymore. And I know the timing is terrible. I know you just got out of something awful and you need time to heal, but I couldn't keep pretending that I'm just your fake boyfriend when I started having real feelings." She was quiet for a long moment, and I felt my heart sinking. I'd said too much too soon. I'd ruined everything, but then she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "I stopped pretending too. I looked at her, afraid to hope. What? I think it was that day at the art gallery, she continued, a small smile playing at her lips. When we were holding hands and I realized I didn't want to let go. When we were having lunch and I was laughing so hard my stomach hurt and I thought, this is what it's supposed to feel like. Being with someone shouldn't feel like walking on eggshells or constantly worrying about saying the wrong thing. It should feel like this, easy, natural, like coming home. But, I prompted because I could hear the hesitation in her voice. But I'm scared, she admitted, and I could see tears gathering in her eyes. I'm scared that I'm not healed enough yet. That I'm going to bring all my baggage and my trust issues into this, and I'm going to ruin something that could be really good. I'm scared that I don't know how to be in a healthy relationship because I haven't had one before. What if I mess this up? I reached over and took her hand in mine. What if you don't? What if we both mess up sometimes because we're human and that's what humans do? But we talk about it and work through it together. What if we take this as slow as you need to take it? With no pressure and no expectations except to be honest with each other. You'd really be okay with that? She asked. With going slow and being patient while I figure out how to trust again? I'd be okay with whatever you need, I said honestly. Because the thing is, I don't just like you. I like who I am when I'm with you. I like the version of myself that steps up and helps someone who needs it. I like having someone to share the weird little moments of my day with. I like planning things and looking forward to seeing you. And if we need to take it one day at a time, one conversation at a time, that's perfectly fine with me. She was crying now, but they were different tears than the ones I'd seen before. These weren't tears of fear or sadness. These were something else entirely. Nobody has ever been this patient with me, she said, her voice thick with emotion. Nobody has ever made me feel like my pace was okay, like my feelings and my healing were more important than what they wanted from me. Then you've been with the wrong people, I said simply. Because that's how it should be. Always. She leaned her head on my shoulder and we sat like that for a while, watching the sun start to sink lower in the sky, painting everything in shades of gold and orange. It felt like an ending and a beginning all at once. The end of the pretending, the end of the fear and running, and the beginning of something new and uncertain but full of possibility. So what do we do now? She asked eventually. Well, I said, thinking about it. How about we start over? Hi, my name is... And I introduced myself formally, like we were meeting for the first time. She laughed, understanding what I was doing. She sat up straight and held out her hand to shake mine. Nice to meet you. And she gave her name. So tell me about yourself, I said, playing along. What do you like to do for fun? I love reading, especially mystery novels, she said, her eyes sparkling. I've been trying to learn Japanese because I want to visit Tokyo someday. I love hiking even though I haven't been in forever. And I make really good chocolate chip cookies if I do say so myself. Those all sound like excellent qualities, I said with a grin. I love hiking too, actually. Maybe we could go sometime, if you're interested in hanging out. I'd like that, she said. What about you? What should I know about you? Let's see. I'm a software developer, which is less exciting than it sounds. I have a sister who's basically my hero. I love old movies, the kind that were made before either of us were born. And I make a mean breakfast burrito. Also excellent qualities, she said, and then her expression turned more serious. Can I ask you something real? Always. What do you want from this? From us, not right now, but eventually? I thought about her question carefully. Honestly? I want what everyone wants. Someone to share life with. Someone to laugh with and figure things out with. Someone who makes the boring parts of life more interesting and the hard parts more bearable. I want to build something real with someone. Something that's based on trust and respect and actually liking each other as people. I'm not in a rush to get to any particular milestone or checkpoint. I just want to see where this goes naturally without forcing anything. That sounds really nice, she said softly. I want that too. I didn't think I did for a while after everything I went through. But meeting you reminded me that not everyone is like him. Not every relationship has to feel like a prison. It can actually be something that adds to your life instead of taking from it. So we're doing this? I asked. For real this time? We're doing this, she confirmed, and then she smiled. But I have one condition. Name it. Can we please go on an actual first date? Like a real one where we're not looking over our shoulders or pretending for anyone else? Just us. Getting to know each other better with no ulterior motives? I would love that, I said. When and where? How about this weekend? There's this new restaurant downtown that's supposed to be really good. We could get dinner and then maybe walk around the waterfront. It's a date, I said. And this time when we held hands, it was with a completely different feeling. It wasn't for show. It wasn't to convince anyone of anything. It was just because we wanted to, because it felt right, because we were choosing each other. 6 months later, we were back at that same cafe where it all started. The one where she'd approached my table with fear in her eyes and asked me to help her. We sat at the same corner table, though this time we were sitting next to each other instead of across from each other, sharing a piece of chocolate cake and talking about our day. The restraining order had been made permanent. Her ex had finally moved to a different city for a job, and she hadn't heard from him in months. She'd started therapy to work through everything she'd been through, and I could see her getting stronger and more confident every day. She'd even reconnected with some old friends he'd isolated her from, rebuilding the support system she'd lost. As for us, we were taking it slow, just like we'd promised. Some days were harder than others. Sometimes she had moments of doubt or fear that came from her past experiences. Sometimes I had to remind myself to be patient and not take it personally when she needed space. But we talked through everything. We were honest with each other. And slowly, steadily, we were building something real. You know what's funny? She said, setting down her fork and looking at me. What's that? When I first saw you sitting here that night, I thought you were going to think I was crazy. I thought you'd tell me to leave you alone or call security or something. I never in a million years imagined that 6 months later we'd be sitting here like this. Life's weird like that, I said, smiling at the memory. Sometimes the worst moments lead to the best things. Do you ever regret it? She asked. Getting involved in all that mess? You could have just said no that first night. I shook my head without hesitation. Not for a second. You know that story I told you about my sister? About how I regretted the times I stepped back instead of stepping up. Helping you that night was one of the times I stepped up. And it's one of the best decisions I've ever made. Not just because of where we are now, but because it was the right thing to do. She leaned over and kissed my cheek. My hero, she said with a playful smile. Nah, I said. You're your own hero. I was just along for the ride. We finished our cake and ordered coffee, talking about our plans for the weekend. We were finally going on that hiking trip we'd been planning, the one we'd talked about during our early fake dates.